Admiral Li Wujin stood on the bridge of his flagship New Harmony, as the Liberation fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Through the main viewing screen, he could see Earth in the distance, a small blue dot surrounded by the defensive satellites and patrol ships of the United Earth Forces. It had been 10 years since he was captured at the Battle of Phobos Station, 10 years of slavery, struggle, and building an impossible alliance. Now he was returning home, but not as the defeated prisoner the Keth had tried to make him. He was returning as the leader of the largest multi-species military force in galactic history. "Sir, we're receiving multiple hail attempts from Earth Defense Command," reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Commander Kim Na-Ra. She was one of the humans who had joined the liberation movement after being freed from a Keth prison world 2 years ago. "How many ships are we detecting in their defensive fleet?" Wujin asked. "Approximately 800 vessels, sir," replied his tactical officer, a Velnari engineer named Polnath. "Mix of destroyers, cruisers, and patrol boats. They're taking a defensive formation around Earth and Luna." Wujin nodded. 800 ships sounded impressive, but he remembered when the UEF had controlled over 3,000 vessels at the start of the war. The Keth had taken a heavy toll on humanity's military forces. "Open a channel to Earth Defense Command," he ordered. "Let's see who's in charge these days." The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of a UEF command ship. The woman who appeared wore admiral stripes and had short gray hair and tired eyes. Wujin didn't recognize her, but she clearly knew who he was. "Commander Li Wujin," she said, her voice showing a mix of disbelief and caution. "I am Admiral Chang Min-ho, current commander of Earth Defense Forces. Our records show you were declared killed in action 10 years ago." "I was captured, not killed," Wujin replied. "I've spent the last decade organizing resistance against the Keth Dominion. Now I've returned with allies to help end this war." Admiral Chang's eyes moved to other parts of the screen, clearly looking at displays that showed the size of his fleet. "Our sensors indicate you have over 2,000 ships. What species are providing these vessels?" "Former slaves of the Keth Dominion," Wujin answered. "Velnari, Corvex, Thane, and others, plus liberated human forces from prison worlds across the galaxy. We call ourselves the Liberation Fleet." The conversation continued for several minutes as Admiral Chang tried to understand what she was seeing. The idea of multiple alien species working together was almost impossible for her to accept. Humans had been fighting alone for so long that the concept of galactic allies seemed like fantasy. Finally, she agreed to let a small delegation visit Earth for direct talks with President Yoon Da-young and the UEF leadership. Wujin's shuttle landed at the same spaceport where he had departed 10 years earlier as a young commander. The city beyond looked different. Many buildings showed damage from Keth orbital bombardments. The streets seemed emptier, but it was still Earth. Still home. President Yoon met him in the same briefing room where Wujin had received his final mission orders a decade ago. She was older now, with lines of stress marking her face. The war had been hard on everyone who survived it. "Commander Lee," she began, then corrected herself. "I understand you prefer Admiral Lee now." "The title was given to me by freed prisoners across 20 worlds," Wujin replied. "I've earned it." "I'm sure you have." President Yoon gestured to the displays around the room showing tactical information about the Liberation Fleet. "Our analysts are having trouble believing what they're seeing. Over 2,000 ships crewed by multiple alien species, all following human leadership?" "Not just human leadership," Wujin corrected. "Shared leadership. Every species contributes, according to their strengths. Velnari handle engineering and biological systems. Corvex manage heavy combat operations. Thane coordinate complex logistics. Humans provide strategic planning and adaptation. It works because we trust each other." Director Dr. Kim Hye-jin entered the briefing room at that moment. She had been Wujin's close friend before his capture, and seeing her again brought back memories of the life he had left behind. Her hair was gray now, and she wore the uniform of UEF Scientific Division, but her eyes were the same. "Hello, Wujin," she said quietly. "I never stopped believing you were alive." "I'm sorry I couldn't contact you sooner," he replied, Communications across Keth space are heavily monitored. Any message would have put both of us in danger. The reunion was emotional, but brief. There were strategic matters to discuss. Earth's situation had gotten worse since Wu Jin's capture. The Keth controlled most of the outer colonies and were slowly tightening their grip on the inner system. Luna base was under constant siege. Mars had fallen 6 months ago. We estimate the Keth have approximately 5,000 ships in this sector, Admiral Chang explained as she showed tactical displays. Our 800 vessels are all that stands between them and Earth itself. That was true yesterday, Wu Jin replied. Today you have 3,000 ships, my fleet plus your existing forces, and more importantly, you have weapons and tactics the Keth have never faced before. He spent the next several hours explaining what the Liberation Fleet had learned during 2 years of successful campaigns against Keth forces. Velnari bioweapons that could disable alien crew members, Thane coordination that allowed perfect fleet maneuvers, Corvex boarding tactics that could take any ship, human strategic flexibility that kept enemies guessing. Most importantly, he explained the psychological impact. For centuries, the Keth had ruled through the fear that resistance was impossible. When enslaved species saw the Liberation Fleet winning battles, they began to believe freedom was possible. Rebellions were breaking out across the galaxy. The Keth Dominion is collapsing, Wu Jin concluded. Not because we're stronger than them, but because we've proven their system doesn't work. Species are more powerful working together than fighting separately. That's something they never understood. 3 days later, the combined Earth Liberation Fleet moved against the Keth forces besieging Luna base. The battle was over in 4 hours. Keth ships that had seemed invincible for years were destroyed by coordinated attacks they had no defense against. The siege of Luna was broken. Admiral Chang watched the tactical displays in amazement as mixed-species boarding parties captured intact Keth vessels. I've never seen anything like this level of coordination between different military forces. You will, Wu Jin assured her. This is how wars will be fought from now on. Not one species against another, but alliances of equals working toward common goals. Over the following months, the Liberation Fleet systematically dismantled Keth control throughout the solar system and beyond. Mars was liberated. The outer colonies were freed. Keth strongholds that had stood for decades fell to combined arms, assaults that used the best abilities of every member species. But the real victory came when delegations from across the galaxy gathered on Earth for the signing of the Galactic Cooperation Treaty. Representatives from hundreds of worlds and dozens of species came together to create the first interspecies government in galactic history. Wu Jin stood before the assembled delegates in the same United Nations building where humanity had once tried to govern itself alone. Now it would serve as the meeting place for a much larger family. 10 years ago, I was captured because humans tried to fight alone against a superior enemy. He began his speech. I learned in captivity that no species is superior when all species work together. Today, we're not just ending a war, we're beginning a new age of galactic civilization. The treaty was signed by over 300 worlds. The Keth Dominion officially surrendered and agreed to transform from a military empire into a member democracy. Former slave worlds became equal partners in galactic government. Months later, Wu Jin stood on the observation deck of New Harmony as it orbited Earth. Through the windows, he could see construction ships from dozens of species working together to build the new Galactic Council headquarters. Velnari bioships, Corvex heavy haulers, Thane precision craft, and human engineering vessels all contributing to a project that would have been impossible without cooperation. Dr. Kim Hee-jin joined him at the window. Their relationship had slowly rebuilt over the months since his return. The war had changed both of them, but the connection they shared remained strong. Any regrets about the path that brought you here? She asked. Wu Jin considered the question carefully. 10 years of slavery, suffering, and struggle. 10 years away from Earth and everyone he loved. But also 10 years that had changed the galaxy forever. No regrets, he finally answered. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead to the best outcomes for everyone. I couldn't save my ship at Phobos Station. But that failure taught me something more important than any victory could have. What's that? That real strength doesn't come from fighting alone. It comes from lifting others up and helping them fight beside you. Outside the window, ships from across the galaxy continued building humanity's new future. A future where no species would ever have to stand alone against impossible odds. A future where former enemies could become family, and where the greatest victories came not from conquest, but from cooperation. The revolution began at exactly 0300 Galactic Standard Time on 7 different worlds. Wu Jin had chosen the timing carefully. Most Keth guards would be at minimum staffing levels. The night shift supervisors would be tired and less alert. Emergency. Response teams would need several minutes to react to multiple simultaneous crises. On Geth Prime, Wu Jin stood in the central mining control room, watching displays that showed prisoner work assignments across the facility. Around him, his most trusted allies prepared for the moment that would change everything. Silneth worked at a Velnari bioengineering station they had secretly built over the past year. Her people's mastery of biological systems had created something the Keth never expected. An engineered virus that attacked the specific neural pathways found only in Keth brains. It wouldn't kill them immediately, but it would cause confusion, memory loss, and coordination problems for several hours. Virus ready for release into the air recycling system, she reported in her calm, precise voice. All Keth personnel will be affected within 20 minutes. Thax stood at a communication console that looked like standard mining equipment to casual inspection, but hidden inside were quantum entanglement transmitters that could send messages instantly to resistance cells across the galaxy. The Thane drone's natural precision made it perfect for coordinating complex, multi-world operations. All cells. Report ready status, Thax announced. Corvex Prime standing by. Velnari colonies prepared. Human prison worlds waiting for signal. Korthak checked weapons that had been disguised as mining tools for months. Cutting lasers modified to work as rifles. Gravity lifters converted into magnetic cannons. Metal fabrication equipment that could produce armor and ammunition. Everything they needed for war, hidden in plain sight. Strike teams in position at all critical facilities, the old Corvex general reported. Guard stations, communication centers, weapon storage, and ship hangars all targeted. Wu Jin took a deep breath and looked at the chronometer on the wall. 10 years of planning came down to the next few hours. Either they would win freedom for billions of enslaved beings, or they would all die in the attempt. Execute, he ordered. Across 7 worlds, the revolution erupted simultaneously. On Geth Prime, Silneth released her bioweapon into the air system. Within minutes, Keth guards began stumbling and losing coordination. Some collapsed entirely. Others wandered around in confusion, unable to remember their duties or operate their equipment properly. Resistance fighters emerged from hidden positions throughout the mining complex. Teams of mixed species moved with perfect coordination, each member contributing their unique abilities. Velnari engineers disabled security systems. Thane drones coordinated group movements through rapid clicking communications. Corvex warriors led assault teams with devastating efficiency. Humans provided overall tactical guidance and adapted plans as situations changed. The Keth had designed their facilities to prevent single-species rebellions. Heavy doors that required Corvex strength to force open. Security codes that needed Velnari technical knowledge to bypass. Coordination. Challenges that only Thane hive mind abilities could handle. Communication problems that human adaptability was perfectly suited to solve. But they had never imagined all these species working together. In the main armory, a team led by former colony administrator Park Jinsu used Velnari bioscanners to identify the correct Keth commanders, then had Thane drones perfectly mimic their voice patterns to unlock weapon storage systems. When that failed, Corvex warriors simply ripped the doors off their hinges. In the vehicle bay, engineer Dr. Lee Hyojin worked with Velnari mechanics to override the safety systems on mining ships, converting them into makeshift warships. The vessels weren't pretty, but they carried enough firepower to threaten Keth patrol craft. Throughout the complex, similar scenes played out. Decades of oppression had taught the different species to work together in ways their captors never anticipated. Every weakness in Keth security was exploited by the species best equipped to handle it. But the real test came when Keth reinforcements arrived. The orbital defense platform above Geth Prime launched 6 attack ships as soon as they realized what was happening. Each ship carried enough firepower to level the entire mining complex. Against traditional rebellion, they would have ended the revolt in minutes. Wu Jin watched them approaching on stolen sensor displays. Thax, signal the orbital team, it's time. 3 months earlier, a routine prisoner transfer had moved a dozen resistance members to work detail on the orbital station. The Keth saw it as normal labor rotation. Wu Jin saw it as getting his people into position for the most critical part of the operation. As the attack ships launched, hidden resistance fighters struck the orbital platform from within. Velnari engineers shut down the station's main power systems. Korvax saboteurs destroyed the communication arrays. Thane drones took control of the automated defense systems and turned the platform's own weapons against the attacking ships. Within 20 minutes, all 6 Keith attack vessels were destroyed or disabled. The orbital platform fell under complete resistance control. Similar victories were being reported from other worlds. On Korvax Prime, warrior prisoners had seized the main Keth garrison and freed over 50,000 enslaved beings. On the Velnari colony worlds, engineer prisoners had taken control of the massive industrial complexes that produced much of the Dominion's advanced technology. On human prison worlds, former military officers were leading coordinated attacks against Keth administrative centers, but Wu Jin knew the hardest part was still coming. Taking the prison facilities was only the beginning. Now they had to hold them against the full military might of the Keth Dominion. All teams, prepare for Phase 2, he announced over the captured communication systems. We're about to find out if 10 years of preparation was enough. The answer came 3 hours later, when a Keth battle fleet of 30 ships emerged from hyperspace around Geth Prime. These weren't patrol craft or local defense vessels. These were frontline warships with enough firepower to crack planets. Wu Jin stood on the bridge of their captured orbital station, looking at tactical displays that showed the approaching enemy fleet. Around him, beings from a dozen different species worked at control stations, each contributing their unique skills to the desperate defense they were about to attempt. Fleet Commander is demanding immediate surrender, reported communications. Officer Yang Minji. He's giving us 10 minutes to release all Keth personnel and return to our cells. Wu Jin looked around at his diverse command team. Silnith monitoring biological warfare systems. Thax coordinating with resistance cells on other worlds. Korthak preparing their improvised defense fleet. Humans, Velnari, Korvax, Thane, and others all working together with a unity the galaxy had never seen before. Signal the fleet commander, Wu Jin replied. Tell him we respectfully decline his offer, then show him what free beings can accomplish when they work together. The battle of Geth Prime lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Keth battle fleet was destroyed and the liberation forces controlled their first fully independent world. More importantly, they had proven that the seemingly invincible Dominion could be beaten. Word of the victory spread across the galaxy faster than Keth censorship could contain it. On enslaved worlds throughout their empire, beings who had given up hope began to believe in freedom again. The revolution had become a war of liberation. And for the first time in centuries, the Keth Dominion was losing. Wu Jin looked out at the stars from his command center, thinking about the long road ahead. They had won the first battle, but there would be many more before this war was over. Still, for the first time in 10 years, he felt something he had almost forgotten. Hope. By his 6th year on Geth Prime, Wu Jin had become someone the guards watched carefully, not because he caused trouble, but because other prisoners listened when he spoke. They came to him with problems. They asked for his advice. They looked to him for hope when everything seemed hopeless. The Keth noticed this too, but they misunderstood what they were seeing. To them, Wu Jin was just another prisoner who had found a way to make life bearable. They didn't realize he was building something much more dangerous than comfort. The breakthrough came when a transport ship arrived carrying prisoners from a failed rebellion on Korvax Prime. Among them was a former general named Korthak, who had led his people's last stand against Keth occupation forces. The alien warriors respected him, but he was bitter and angry at their defeat. 40 years of fighting, Korthak told Wu Jin during one of their secret tunnel meetings. 40 years, and we never came close to real victory. The Keth have too many ships, too many weapons, too much technology. Maybe that's because you fought alone, Wu Jin replied carefully. He had learned to approach these conversations slowly. Pride was important to the Korvex, and suggestions of weakness could end discussions before they started. Alone? Korthak's heavy brow ridges lowered. We had millions of warriors, entire fleets of battleships. But did you have Velnari engineers designing your weapons? Did you have Thane drones coordinating your attacks? Did you have human strategists planning your campaigns? The old general was quiet for a long moment. Around them, other prisoners continued their secret classes. Silneth was teaching a group of humans how to modify mining equipment. Thax was showing Korvex warriors how Thane communication worked. Everywhere Wu Jin looked, different species were learning from each other. The Keth rule by keeping us separate, Wu Jin continued. They make sure each species only thinks about their own problems. But what if we stopped thinking that way? What if we started thinking like one people, with many different abilities? That conversation changed everything. Korthak began sharing Korvex military knowledge with anyone who wanted to learn. His warriors started teaching combat techniques to members of other species. In return, they learned Velnari engineering and Thane coordination methods. More importantly, word of what was happening on Geth Prime began to spread. The Keth moved prisoners between worlds regularly. Workers who got too sick were sent to easier facilities. Troublemakers were transferred to harsher camps. Specialists were moved wherever their skills were needed most. The aliens saw this as efficient management of resources. Wu Jin saw it as a communication network. Every prisoner who left Geth Prime carried knowledge of what they had learned. Every new arrival brought information about conditions on other worlds. Slowly, carefully, Wu Jin began to build connections across the entire Keth prison system. The process took years. Messages had to be hidden in casual conversations. Plans had to be shared through songs and stories that seemed harmless to guards. Most importantly, everything had to seem natural and unorganized. The moment the Keth suspected coordinated resistance, the whole network would be destroyed. By his 8th year of captivity, Wu Jin was in contact with resistance cells on 7 different worlds. Each cell was small and focused on their local situation, but they all followed the same basic principles he had developed. First, learn from each other. Every species had knowledge the others needed. Share it freely and openly. Second, help without expecting reward. Build trust through actions, not words. Third, think long-term. Small sabotage that looked like accidents was better than dramatic gestures that brought punishment. Fourth, stay hidden. The best resistance was invisible resistance. The doctrine, as prisoners called it, spread faster than Wu Jin had expected. Aliens who had never worked together before began forming mixed teams. Production efficiency actually improved in many facilities as different species combined their abilities in new ways. The Keith guards were pleased with these developments, not realizing they were looking at the foundation of their own downfall. But Wu Jin knew that organizing was only the first step. To actually challenge Keth rule, they would need weapons, ships, and technology. That meant going beyond passive resistance to active preparation for war. The solution came from an unexpected source. Thax, the Thane drone who had helped save Wu Jin's life years earlier, approached him with an idea that seemed impossible. My people built networks across thousands of worlds before the Keth conquest, Thax explained in its careful, precise voice. Communication nodes hidden in asteroid fields and dead planets. Most were destroyed, but some might still work. Even if they do, the Keth monitor all communications, Wu Jin replied. They would detect any signals we send. Not if we use quantum entanglement protocols, Silneth added. She had been listening from nearby, as she often did when the three of them met. Velnari developed those systems for deep ocean exploration. Messages appear instantly across any distance with no detectable transmission. Korthak leaned forward with interest. You're talking about real-time coordination across multiple worlds, simultaneous attacks that the Keth couldn't respond to quickly enough. Wu Jin felt his heart racing. For the first time since his capture, he could see a path to actual victory. Not just escape, not just survival, but the complete overthrow of Keth rule. It would take years to set up, he said slowly, thinking through the implications. We'd need to get people into position on every major Keth facility. We'd need weapons and ships ready for the moment we strike, and we'd need to do all of it without anyone suspecting what we're really building. The Keth have taught us patience, Silnith replied with what might have been a smile on her alien features. We can wait as long as necessary. The next 2 years were the most dangerous of Wu Jin's captivity. Building the resistance network required taking risks that could have gotten everyone involved killed. They had to steal communications equipment. They had to hack into Keth computer systems. They had to recruit trustworthy people from dozens of different species across multiple worlds. Most challenging of all, they had to do it while continuing to work 18-hour shifts in the mines and maintaining the appearance of broken, defeated prisoners. But slowly, carefully, the network grew. Velnari engineers began modifying mining equipment that could serve as weapons. Thane drones established hidden communication nodes. Corvex warriors trained other species in combat techniques. Human coordinators like Wu Jin kept track of the big picture and made sure all the pieces would work together. By the end of his 9th year, Wu Jin commanded a secret army spread across the galaxy. They had weapons hidden in dozens of locations. They had converted mining ships that could serve as warships. They had supporters in every major Keth facility, including some of the aliens' most important industrial worlds. Most importantly, they had something the Keth had never faced before: perfect cooperation between species that had spent centuries fighting each other. The aliens had created their own worst nightmare. By enslaving the galaxy's most capable beings and forcing them to work together, they had forged an alliance stronger than anything that had existed in galactic history. As Wu Jin looked around the secret meeting hall they had carved out of an abandoned mining tunnel, he saw representatives from 20 different worlds: Velnari, Thane, Corvex, humans, and species he was still learning about. All of them united by shared suffering and common purpose. The time for hiding is almost over, he told them. Soon, we'll show the Keth what happens when they underestimate the people they've enslaved. In the shadows of the tunnel, alien eyes gleamed with anticipation. The revolution was ready to begin. The transport ship landed on Geth Prime with a grinding thud that shook Wu Jin awake. He had been unconscious for most of the journey, drifting in and out of sleep while his broken ribs slowly healed. Now, as the cargo doors opened, he got his first look at what would be his home for the rest of his life. Geth Prime was a dead world. No atmosphere, no water, just endless gray rock under a black sky filled with distant stars. The mining complex stretched across the surface like a metal cancer, with deep shafts disappearing into the planet's core. Massive machines moved back and forth carrying loads of raw ore to processing stations. "Move, human," growled the Keth guard, poking Wu Jin with an electric prod. The shock made his muscles spasm, but he forced himself to stand and walk with the other prisoners being unloaded from the ship. There were dozens of them. Most were human, but Wu Jin saw other species too. Tall, thin creatures with blue skin and large eyes. Short, heavily built beings covered in natural armor. Things that looked like giant insects walking on their back legs. All of them wore the same gray prison uniforms. All of them had the same defeated look in their eyes. The processing center was a huge metal building where new prisoners were sorted and assigned. Wu Jin stood in line for hours while Keth officials decided where each person would work. The aliens moved with mechanical efficiency, checking files on their data devices and marking symbols on prisoner uniforms. When his turn came, a Keth officer scanned the identification chip they had implanted in his arm during the journey. Information appeared on the screen in alien writing. Military commander. High intelligence rating. Physical condition good, the alien read out loud. Assignment. Deep mining sector 7. Shift rotation. 18 hours work. 4 hours rest. 2 hours feeding. Warning. Escape attempts result in immediate execution. They gave him mining tools and a breathing mask. The tools were simple: a cutting laser for breaking rock, a gravity lifter for moving heavy stones, a collection bag for gathering valuable ore. The mask would keep him alive in the airless tunnels, but just barely. It recycled the same air over and over until it was thin and bitter. Sector 7 was deep underground. The tunnels were narrow and dark, lit only by small work lights every few hundred meters. The rock walls pressed in from all sides, and Wu Jin could hear them creaking under the enormous weight above. His work partner was another human, a woman named Dr. Choi Minna. She had been a colony scientist before her research station was captured 6 months ago. Like Wu Jin, she was still learning how to survive in this place. "The trick is to pace yourself," she explained as they worked side by side, cutting chunks of glowing ore from the tunnel wall. "Push too hard and you'll collapse. Don't work hard enough and the guards will notice. Find the middle ground and you might live through your first year." "First year?" Wu Jin asked between cuts. The laser was getting heavy in his hands. "Most humans don't make it that long," Minna replied. She didn't look at him when she said it. The Keth don't waste food on workers who can't produce. As the days turned into weeks, Wu Jin learned the harsh realities of life on Geth Prime. The food was barely enough to keep a person alive. The work never stopped. The guards were quick to use their electric prods on anyone who moved too slowly or complained too loudly. But he also learned about his fellow prisoners. The blue-skinned aliens were called Velnari. They came from ocean worlds and were natural engineers. Even with simple tools, they could fix almost anything. The heavily built creatures were Korvax, a warrior race that had fought the Keth for centuries before being conquered. The insect-like beings were Thane, part of a hive mind that could coordinate complex tasks without speaking. Each species had been enslaved for different reasons. The Velnari understood advanced technology. The Korvax were incredibly strong. The Thane could work together perfectly. Humans were adaptable and good at solving problems. The Keth took the best of each race and used it for their own benefit. After 3 months, Wu Jin began to understand the prison's hidden social structure. The different species mostly kept to themselves, united only by their shared suffering. But there were exceptions. Some prisoners had learned to communicate across language barriers. They shared food, helped each other during medical emergencies, and sometimes even protected weaker individuals from the worst guards. One of these cross-species friendships saved Wu Jin's life. He was working alone in a side tunnel when part of the ceiling collapsed. Heavy rocks pinned his legs and his breathing mask was damaged. As precious air leaked out, he tried to call for help, but his voice was too weak. A Velnari named Silneth heard him struggling. She crawled into the collapsed tunnel despite the danger and used her people's natural engineering skills to move the rocks. When she couldn't lift them alone, she made clicking sounds that brought other aliens to help. A Korvax named Korvac used his massive strength to clear the heaviest stones. While they freed his legs, a Thane drone named Thax worked on his damaged breathing mask. The insect-like alien had learned basic human technology from watching the guard's equipment. With careful movements of its precise hands, it sealed the leak and restored the airflow. "Why?" Wu Jin asked when he could breathe again. "Why help? Me?" Silneth's large eyes looked at him with something like sadness. "Because you are trapped here too," she said in careful English. "Because the Keth want us to hate each other instead of them. Because helping feels better than giving up." That night, as Wu Jin recovered in the medical bay, he thought about what had happened. The different species had worked together perfectly to save him. Each had contributed their unique abilities. The Velnari mind for engineering, the Korvax strength, the Thane precision. If they could do that during an emergency, what else might be possible? Over the following months, Wu Jin began building relationships with aliens from all the different species. He learned basic words in their languages. He helped them understand human concepts they found confusing. Most importantly, he began to see past their strange appearances to the intelligent beings underneath. The Velnari were not just engineers. They were philosophers who thought deeply about the meaning of existence. The Korvax were not just warriors. They had a complex code of honor that valued protecting the weak. The Thane were not just hive drones. Individual members could think independently when they chose to. As his second year began, Wu Jin realized something the Keth had not intended. By putting all these different species together in the same prison, they had created an opportunity. Not for escape, not yet, but for something potentially more dangerous. Understanding. Late at night, when the guards were fewer and the surveillance was lighter, small groups of prisoners began meeting in abandoned tunnel sections. They shared stories about their home, worlds. They taught each other useful skills. They planned small acts of sabotage that would slow down production without getting anyone killed. Wu Jin found himself becoming a natural leader in these gatherings. His military training helped him organize activities. His human adaptability let him understand the needs of different species. His experience with command taught him how to inspire others, even in the darkest circumstances. But the most important thing he learned during those long months was patience. The Keth had ruled the galaxy for centuries. They had conquered dozens of worlds and enslaved billions of beings. They would not be defeated by angry prisoners making desperate escape attempts. They would be defeated by careful planning, by building trust between species that had never worked together before, and by turning their own system against them. As his third year of captivity began, Wu Jin looked around at his fellow prisoners with new eyes. They were not just victims anymore. They were students, teachers, and potential allies in something much bigger than any of them had imagined. The Keth thought they had broken these beings by putting them to work in the mines. Instead, they had given them time to learn from each other, time to build something new, time to plan. The red warning lights flashed across the bridge of the starship Defiance. Commander Li Wu Jin gripped his captain's chair as another blast hit their shields. Through the viewing screen, he could see the massive alien ships surrounding them like hungry wolves. "Shield strength down to 20%, sir," reported his weapons officer, Lieutenant Kim Boram. Her voice stayed calm, but Wu Jin could see the fear in her eyes. They all knew this might be their last battle. The Keth Dominion had been winning the war for 3 years. Their ships were faster, stronger, and carried weapons that could tear through human armor like paper. Earth's colonies fell one by one. Mars was under siege. Luna Base sent desperate calls for help every day. Wu Jin's mission was simple but almost impossible. Break through the Keth blockade around Mars, get supplies to the human defenders, buy time for Earth to build more ships. He knew the chances were slim, but someone had to try. "Enemy flagship moving to attack position," called out Navigator Park Sung-ho from his station. "She's big, Commander. Twice the size of anything we've seen before." Wu Jin nodded. The Keth always sent their biggest ships to finish wounded prey. It was their way. Show overwhelming power, make humans feel small and helpless, break their spirit before breaking their ships. "All hands, prepare for ramming speed," Wu Jin announced over the ship's communication system. "This is not a drill. All crew to escape pods immediately, that's an order." Lieutenant Kim turned in her seat. "Sir, we can still fight. The engines are holding." "The engines won't last another 5 minutes under this fire," Wu Jin replied. He looked at his crew, these brave men and women who had followed him across the galaxy. "I need you all to live. Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them we tried." One by one, his officers left their stations. They moved quickly, but their faces showed they didn't want to abandon their commander. Wu Jin understood. He didn't want to die alone either. But someone had to stay behind to set the fusion core to overload. Someone had to try to take that alien flagship with them. The bridge grew quiet except for the sound of explosions hitting their hull. Wu Jin moved to the engineering console. His hands moved over the controls he had practiced 1,000 times in training. Set the fusion reactor to critical mass. Lock out all safety systems. Point the ship at the enemy. Through the screen, he watched his crew's escape pods launching toward empty space. The Keth ships ignored them. Aliens always focused on the biggest threat. They would pick up survivors later if there were any. "Computer set course for enemy flagship," Wu Jin ordered. "Maximum speed. Warning. Fusion reactor approaching critical mass. Recommend immediate evacuation." The ship's computer replied in its calm voice. Wu Jin smiled sadly. Even the computer was trying to save him. Override all warnings. Lock navigation on target. The Defiance turned toward the massive Keth ship. Its dark hull stretched for kilometers, covered in weapons that glowed with deadly energy. Smaller, ships swarmed around it like angry insects. They all focused their fire on the approaching human vessel. The ship shook harder with each hit. Consoles sparked and went dark. The lights flickered, but the fusion reactor kept building power. Soon, it would release all that energy at once. Even if it didn't destroy the alien flagship, it might damage it enough to help other human ships. 30 seconds to impact, the computer announced. Wu Jin closed his eyes and thought of Earth, blue skies, and green forests. His sister Su Jin, who worked at the Space Academy. His parents who still lived in the same small house where he grew up. All the people counting on him and others like him to keep the aliens away from home. 10 seconds to impact. The Keth flagship grew larger and larger on the screen. He could see details now. Gun ports, armor plating, strange symbols in their alien language. The ship was beautiful in its own terrible way, built for war and conquest. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2. The explosion lit up space like a new star. The Defiance disappeared in a ball of nuclear fire that expanded outward, reaching for the alien ship. For a moment, Wu Jin thought they had done it. The light was so bright, the energy so powerful. But when the fire faded, the Keth flagship still floated in space. Damaged, yes. Part of its hull was twisted and burning, but not destroyed, not stopped. Wu Jin found himself floating in the wreckage of his bridge, held in place by twisted metal. His body hurt everywhere, but somehow he was still alive. The explosion had thrown him clear just before the worst of it. His uniform was torn and blood covered his face, but he was breathing. Around him, pieces of his ship drifted in the void. The Defiance was gone. His crew was gone, hopefully safe in their escape pods. And he was alone. The alien ship moved closer. He could see smaller craft launching from its bays, rescue ships, or maybe collection ships. The Keth never wasted useful resources. Even human prisoners had value as workers. As the alien vessel approached his position, Wu Jin tried to reach for the emergency beacon on his belt. His arm wouldn't move right. Something was broken inside. But it didn't matter. Earth was too far away to help even if they received his signal. The alien ship extended a mechanical arm that grabbed the wreckage around him. He felt himself being pulled inside, away from the stars and the cold vacuum of space, away from freedom. Inside the alien ship, creatures in environmental suits surrounded him. They were taller than humans, with gray skin and too many joints in their arms. Their faces were hidden behind masks, but their movements showed they were efficient and professional. They had done this many times before. One of them pointed a device at him, a scanner of some kind. It beeped several times, then displayed symbols Wu Jin couldn't read. The alien operating it made a sound that might have been satisfaction. Human. Military. Commander level, it said in broken but understandable English. Good. You will work, you will serve, you will live, if you obey. They carried him deeper into their ship, past corridors filled with alien technology and strange lights. The last thing Wu Jin saw before they put him in a holding cell was a window showing the stars outside. Somewhere out there was Earth. Somewhere. Out there, the war continued, but for Commander Li Wu Jin, the war was over. His real test was just beginning.